Go míle maith Gaeilge an Sachtan seo. A very quick one before we get going. If you've been learning Irish for a while, but you still feel stuck or frustrated when it comes to speaking, that is exactly what we fix on the Learn Irish Online membership. As an LIO member, you get the structure and help you need to finally start speaking with real confidence from day one. Because unlike other schools or apps, we teach you what you actually need to know for everyday use of the language. You can sign up for a free trial today. I guarantee within a week you'll feel clearer in speaking the language and how you can continue your progress moving forward. If not, you can cancel. You've lost nothing. But guess what? In 2025, over 90% of learners just like you who signed up stuck with us after their free trial because it made a serious difference in their ability to speak as Gaeilge, and the majority of them are still with us to this day. You can join now at patreon.com/learnirishonline or simply search for us on the Patreon app. Hi folks, it's Eve. You're very welcome back to the show. Fáilte mhíle to Rove Arash Wig on show. As always, Mar Igoni, a big thank you, míle buíochas as túnal Shock for tuning in, and a big thank you for supporting not only Gaeilge Weekly but also Learn Irish Online. Míle buíochas as a bheith ag taú le níomháin Gaeilge Weekly ach Learn Irish Online LIO Covma. This week on the show, EAGRÁN na seachtaine seo, I wanted to speak a little bit, bhí mé géirí labhairt beaganaín, about a small trip I've got coming up for thuras beag atá ag teach suas agam. In fact, quite a big trip. Ná réire thuras sách mór. Certainly in terms of how far away it is from Ireland, maid le cícheál fada is atá sé ó Éireann, Éireannos. And that is because next month in August, an bhí se thugan I mí Lúnasa, where will I be going? Call my mate ag dul, but over across the Atlantic to Canada, trasna an Atlantic chuig Canada. Now, I spoke about this a little bit earlier on in the year. Bhí mé glártaí seo beaganaín níos luachas a bhliain that I was considering going, go raibh mé ag smaoinú faoi dul, and that I was thinking about going to Newfoundland. Go raibh mé ag smaoinú faoi dul chuig Newfoundland, or as it's known in Irish, mar a deirtar as Gaeilge. And yes, there is an Irish translation, a proper Irish translation, astrachan cheart as Gaeilge, Newfoundland, talamh an uisc, the land of the fish. So I did a full episode on this, rinne mé EAGRÁN umlán seo earlier on in the year, níos luachas a bhliain, I think back around January time, heart mí anar. And finally, I've pulled the trigger, so to speak, tá cinenne déanta agam, and I'm heading over not only to Newfoundland, but also to Toronto for a few days next month. I'm ag dul chuig talamh an uisc agus Toronto Covma an bhí se thugan. Over the last few months, I'd kind of let the idea go for a while and was busy with other stuff. Lig me sir an smaoinú ar cúpla mí agus bhí mé ag déile le rudaí eile, and this month, or last few weeks even, le cúpla seachtain anús, I said, you know what, I've got no other plans for the second half of August. Níl aon plan na móra am le haon dara lá de bhí Lúnasa. Why not go for us? Cén fá nach rachi mé chuig Canada agus cén fá nach néonhí mé an plan seo. Why wouldn't I do this plan or kind of take action on this plan and head west? And for the first time in my life, don chéador im a héal hain leave Europe, an Europe a ágal. Just for about 9 days, I think in total, 8 or 9 days, ocht no ní lá. I'm going to be in Ireland anyway, so I'll head over from Dublin to St. John's, the capital city in Newfoundland, príomh chathair talamh an uisc, and then do a few days in Toronto after that as well. Cúpla lá a dhéanamh I Toronto inne sin. So firstly, dús, if anybody is based over in Newfoundland or over in Toronto, má tá aon duine lonnaithe hall an sin I talamh an uisc nó I Toronto, or if anyone has any tips or has lived there, recommendations or whatever it might be, Payrod a town, a multi, a legna, please be in contact with me or get in contact with me. Follow Zagwallum at liam.learnirishonline@gmail.com. The email, liam.learnirishonline@gmail.com, or a message over on Instagram on the Learn Irish Online account. Teachtarach hall Instagram an gúntas Learn Irish Online. So why am I doing this trip? Why am I going? Cén fá ó bhfuil méid dul, cén fá ó bhfuil méid ag déanú an turas seo? Well, there's a few reasons. Cúpla fá le seo. And as I mentioned, I kind of spoke a lot about certainly Newfoundland earlier on this year on, I think it was episode 125 of the show, of the podcast. If you make láhairt faoi seo at length ar fa tamil EAGRÁN céad sa fichuig den so, siar mianar no mi fiara. But the reason I'm decided to do it is, firstly, I like doing one big trip every year. It's malcolm thurs one more a GACH blin. Some of you who've been listening to the podcast for a while now, Shivsha tá géiste leis an budchréile le tamlanús. You guys might remember I headed over to Italy last year. Beidir go mbeidh sibh an cuimhnú an nuri agus mise ag dul trasna go dtí an idol, since I've been learning Italian for the last few years. Before that, I did a solo trip, and that's worth saying as well. Is fiúa é sin a lua chomh ma de gná ar na turas seo. Normally in these trips, I head over on my own. And I do a bit of solo travel, again, for a week, 10 days, 2 weeks, something like that. Seachtain dead law, caiiciis, and very lucky to be able to do it. And tá pod deargarm hon the vetlan a dhéanú, to have a job where I can work myself from the laptop whenever I want and wherever I want. Gwyl mewn an ober dom hain agus ima einar agus níl canasi agam. I don't have a boss agus is féidrilum an ober a dhéanú payach, wherever it might be, agus payam a bhfuil me ag géirí whatever time I want. So very lucky, firstly, and I'm very grateful and very appreciative. Not everybody, and not even a lot of people, have that chance. Níl an chance sin agus an gestion, that opportunity ag alán daoine. I always really want to point that out earlier on, that I'm not kind of taking this for granted. Namely, an talamh slán seo, and these brilliant kind of opportunities to travel and do different stuff. Na gestion iontacha seo, chun taistil agus rudaí éagsúla a dhéanamh. So I like doing one big trip every year, and I hadn't done one or hadn't organised one this year yet. Ní rá ceann amháin na turas amháin agríthe agam I mbliana fós. But also Newfoundland especially, and that's the main reason going. Toronto is kind of an add-on. I'm sure it'll be interesting as well. Thought Toronto size mar add-on agus just áchela le dul I ní talamh. But the main reason for going is to go to Newfoundland, somewhere I've really wanted to go to for a while. Áit around me géirí dulhuige le tamil anús, and that of course is because of the massive Irish connection there is there. Sin mar gheall ar an gangles ulmhór éireannach atá hall an sin, or certainly what I think is a big Irish connection. I'm not sure how strong it will be. Nimmi cínta cé chomh is a bhaid sin. Again, that's one of the reasons I'm going out of curiosity, as of a fisrach, and wanting to find out just exactly how strong that Irish connection is. Cé chomh is atá an nasc éireannach sin. So for those of you who don't know Newfoundland, I'd recommend having a look at the map. A Wolchan dits Fechens an Léirscáil, just to get an idea of where it is. It's incredible how far to the east it is, and how actually close to Ireland it is in a way. Céchomh Congrach is atá sé de éireann ar chlí. In fact, I was doing a bit of research, and Galway, where I grew up, Gailge an áit abas me hain, is closer to Newfoundland than it is, and I hope I'm pronouncing it that right. Tassolam Gulbe occur on Fum New Character, because I think it's not meant to be Newfoundland the way you say it. Ní Chartich Newfoundland or be Chartich New Fun, because so let spree fun Newfoundland or Newfoundland. But again, another thing I'm sure I'll learn while I'm over there. Rodella will me hun fólum agus misha hall on shin. But Galway is closer to Newfoundland. Tá Gailge níos congrí de talamh than Galway is to Donetsk in eastern Ukraine. Will Gailge le Donetsk in orthu na Ucráine. And quite amazing, really, when you consider that Ukraine is about to join the EU. Tá Ucráine hon seach san Aontas Eorpach, probably in a few years, gan cúpla bliain, and both Ireland and the Ukraine an Ucráine agus era were both European countries. Tá an bhirrtaigh mar thíortha Eorpacha, but Newfoundland is actually closer to Galway than Galway is to Donetsk. The talamh níos congrí de Gailge ná mar tá Gailge agus Donetsk, and Newfoundland is easily closer to Galway than Newfoundland is to Vancouver. Tá Newfoundland níos congrí, nó talamh níos congrí de Gailge ná mar tá talamh le Vancouver, even though those two are in the same country. Cé go bhfuil an dá áit sin sa tír céine. And you really get an idea why so many Irish, when they left and went west and crossed the Atlantic to get out of Ireland, hun Iriasno hun era a ágáil blianta in, how they would have ended up there. And of course the other places, let's say in the US, na hot and ella, san Stáit such as Boston and New York, Boston, agus Nua Aurach. But as far as I know, and again, I'm far from an expert on the history, and one of the reasons I'm looking forward to finding out, and I'm actually kind of holding back from finding out too much before I go, to make déanamh along den ólas Chiachans Rivdul, because I want to kind of find it out from the people there rather than just online before going in it's just Irlína Rivdul. But I'm fairly sure most of the Irish descendants, Dini le Irecht Éarnach Hall on Sin, they came from the southeast of the country, in terms of the southeast of Ireland, as or Yeshgart na Héireann, I think around Wexford, Waterford type of area. Now, I'm not sure exactly why. I'm not sure why people who left from Galway, Cork, Kerry and other places in Ireland, Nilsam, cén fá Nachnyaki, Windsor, O Chiri, Herky, Gailge, agus áitna in Iarnatira, how they didn't end up in Newfoundland's Kinchui, nor Hritni Sheedson, agus nor Landal Sheedson Hall Idalav on Ishk. So, as far as I know, that is the story. Shean on scale as Kadata Irolas agam Irenos. And still to this day, the accent is quite strong, and a transatlantic accent. On blas ataku, tá sé sais mar blas idzer on da'at, agus ilor on Atlantic. And I know they say that about a lot of places, you know, the Black Irish in Montserrat, na here in the Gurma Hall of Montserrat, even in Argentina, there's some communities where they say there's, you know, big Irish, and there is an Irish connection. I'm not saying there's not tá ceangalt éarnachs na hot na sin, but it's often, you know, one or two interviews for a minority show in the 70s, Peter Agaliv no Gá Agaliv ó show were rinne RTE shears na seachtaigh na hochtaigh, and there's a bit of an Irish twang to the accent. But in Newfoundland, from what I know, fector dumsa goil a wad níos mó. I mean, even already I've been in contact with a few people living over there, a few people based over there. Tá mis a hána féin idzagháil le cúpla duine ina gcónaí hall an sin, agus cúpla duine loníthe hall an sin. And already through the voice messages we've been exchanging, I can hear so many Irishisms and just a full-on transatlantic accent. So it's Canuns no Blas transatlantic, that's almost half Irish and half Canadian. It also has a lot of its own specific stuff, but a lot of the mannerisms, a lot of the words, Lans na focal agus the mannerisms, a guarantee agus úsáidin siad are just like what would be used in Ireland. And again, what would specifically be used down in the southeast of the country, Lans and a rudi úsáid their gohoria in or Yeshgart na Tíre. So even the music, there's a big connection to Nask Ulwar leis an Giol Kovma. The place I'm staying actually is a small place called Calvert. Viog Darvanam Calvert. I'll also be staying in the capital, St. John's, for a few days by Migfanacht. I Bríomhchathair Talvanaisk fad cúpla lá Kovma Darvanam St. John's. No, níomh Seán, mar is féidir an rá as Gaeilge. But the place there in Calvert has a place called Sullivan's Songhouse. I think it's the name of it. Captain Sullivan's Songhouse, Jen on Talum, and they have Irish trad sessions, or certainly Newfoundland music, Ciolo, Talvanaisk, but that's very much based on kind of Irish trad music and that type of session environment. They have that on twice a week, being Sinner Shul Gá or Inai na Seachtaine, which I'm very much looking forward to attend. It'll be a real privilege war of Ayan hun frastal sin. Even the landscape, I think, although it's probably a bit more awe-inspiring in Newfoundland with the icebergs, if they count as part of the landscape, and icebergs mo chorín siad sin mar chuid den tíorthach, and the green and the houses and the way they're set up across the land, somewhat similar to Ireland. I know it's very easy to say, but a lot of places you could say, oh, that, you know, X, Y, or Z is so similar. I always think people say it about every country in Europe, right? Sharon Dini. é sin faoi gach tír simple na Europa. They say, oh, the Spanish have the same sense of humor, or the Belgians are very similar to the Irish, you know, oppressed people. The Greeks are very similar. I think, what country isn't similar? Cén tír nachhfuil cosúil linne san Europa. So I know it's a very cliche throwaway line, tá sé mar líon na frása anna cliche, but the Irish connection in Newfoundland, again, from what I've seen, I've not been, and I'll report back start of September when we're back with Gaeilge Weekly by my rash. Ag lauert swi shogs, like Cúna J, ag Thorish Jeeve, in me Bhion Fover, when we are back with the show, nor Thomas Rash, lesh on show after our holidays, Thresh our Leighton Sira, and hopefully I will be able to say, or maybe it'll be just as interesting if it isn't as strong as I think Mona will say, Col Lauds or Mar Chiapan. The flight shall be getting across from Dublin to Newfoundland, unsurprisingly. God Neil Intas Ershaw is the shortest transatlantic flight there is, and that you could possibly do, maybe apart from a few flights to Greenland, if that counts. Tá sé mar an tetzelt is lú no is gira idir Taobháin on Atlantic agus Taobh Ella. And in fact, on the way back, I think if you're going from St. John's to Dublin, it might even be under 4 hours. Tá sé few beds are níos lú ná Cera or it's about the 4 hour mark. And I was very surprised as well that tickets to get over across, again, shorter distance, less jet fuel and everything else, níos lú Brúsla, ag Tastal, Marial, gohfuil an Achar, níos lú. But I was very surprised that it was relatively cheap to get over. In fact, the ticket I got, and again, this is only in the last week or two, so not really booked far in advance, you know, near Herme, é seo nóirithe along Rivray near Herbe. I only booked it, I guess, from 6-7 weeks before the actual flight, saying those Shachtan, Riv on Tetzels, Hain. And it was only €145 to go from Dublin to St. John's, the Airshak. Céad is carcha euro huntol of Law Clia to St. John's. A transatlantic flight for 145. There can't be many people who've got that, especially on such short notice. I was kind of, you know, when I had it in the back of my head over the last few months, agus é sin ima insín, nor chúlba insín le cúpla mí anús. I kept on thinking, but between everything going on in Iran, Gachar, they're sold in Iran, and getting closer to the date, price will probably be very high, and it was cheaper then than it had been when I was looking at it in January. Bhí sé níos sira nuair bhí mé ag féchan sér caiiciis ó hin, ná mar bhí sé nuair bhí mé ag féchan sér imianar, in Molina. So sometimes it shows you prices, especially airline prices, very unpredictable. So an Zachar hun is a bheith agat cad a haar loi leis na price na airlínse. Before I go on speaking a little bit about Toronto and the rest of my trip, just another reminder, if you enjoy Gaeilge Weekly but you want to start taking serious action towards speaking, writing, reading and understanding the language to a high level and learning Irish that you can actually use every day, not just token phrases or boring history lessons or linguistic jargon, then don't forget to head over to patreon.com/learnirishonline and sign up for a free trial as a member today. I'm not going to bore you with all the details about it right here. You go check for yourself. If you like it, after a week, stick with us. If not, feel free to cancel. And we're still very grateful for you listening to Gaeilge Weekly every week. So in Yishin, by me, Iglanatrai Whig Toronto, Fad Cúpla Law. After that, I'm going to be heading on to Toronto for a few days. I guess a big reason for this, I'd love to tell you, I have this thing to do in Toronto, or I really want to go see this thing. It's a lifetime dream of mine, Ashling of Iam, or from a Hale or Fad. It's not, it's more so I was thinking, well, if I'm going across to North America, why not see a second place while I'm at it? Because who knows next time I'll be back, or if I'll ever be back. On Chéad or Ellis of Ace Mayrash, Neil Sagam, no, on my Mayrash Arish, a Hale. So I decided, why not head somewhere else? And there was, again, a nice flight that works out for me. The Etzels Jas a Daibrimach Dumsa from St. John's over to Toronto, St. John's Hall, go Toronto, with Porter, who I'd never heard of. So many of these airlines in North America I'd never heard of because I've never been. On Maid Sin Airlines Hall, Iganada, Agus Mercha Hui, nor Hulme Fuhu, because I've not been over there, near Alme on Sin Reeve, but managed to get the tickets on a flight going one of the mornings over to Toronto. I'm going to do 3 or 4 days there. I think it's 4 days and 3 nights. Cera Law, August 3 Ihe before returning back to Dublin. Riv Filu Aras Huig Vlachlia. So if there's anyone over in Toronto, or if there's anyone again who has recommendations or whatever it might be, ain't dinner, will multi agav no legend no ain't dinner, but you're going and saying, please be in contact with me. Let me know what I should do, what I should get up to, and I'm really, really, really looking forward to it. Both parts of the trip on da chuids den hers. I guess with Toronto, and especially going over by myself, le Toronto, ag scorí hamisha ag dul hall and sin im einer. I often think about how maybe when I'm traveling, I do it slightly differently to other people. Be me ag tastal a malach buglín tifriúil ag umpraj le daoine eile. Obviously, traveling solo is one part of that. Ag tastal im einer sin chuid a bháin sin that probably not a lot of people do, and they've been a long daoine ag téanó on road sin. There's advantages and disadvantages to traveling solo. Some people think, oh, it must be terrible. Some people think it must be the best thing ever. And being a long daoine ag smuoinú go make sure you fásach agus wegnach and lonely, ach being long daoine ag smuoinú go mean say on spriel. And I would say it's just different. It's not necessarily better or worse. Níl say níos massa nó níos far, for me at least, dumsa ar laiad. But it is definitely different. There's some things that are better than travelling with other people. Tá neart rudí agus tá siad níos far ná a bheith ag tastal le daoine eile. But there's also plenty of things that aren't as good. Gandá tá a lot rudí nachhfuil cobh jazz. But it depends who you meet. Because really, when you're travelling solo, you're not travelling solo. Really, nuair tá tú ag tastal ide éonar, níl tú ide éonar in lá rire. Because you meet people and you kind of force yourself to meet people and put yourself out there, being to occur ílach earthain, hon casú le daoine difriúla agus corda, to basically to make friends, agus cordish, to make friendships or hopefully bonds with people as well. So that's going to be my plan for Toronto, but also I guess I have no real interest in kind of sightseeing or the big touristy stuff. Níl mór an simam sna rudí anna size touristy, no na sites eáil. I mean, if I go past them, why not? We're heading to church, a big church for a few minutes, whatever. I'm happy to do that stuff sometimes. To sauce the hunna rudí sin a dhéanamh orintha, but just the big queues, and normally it's not as good as you think, and I just think, not arse, not interested. Níl ein simam is come along. But I like just living a normal life, almost as if I'm living there for a few days. Domsa is matlum gná héal a bheith am agus mise an sin cosúil go bhfuil mé im a chónaí an sin. So while I'm in Toronto, I'll probably get up in the morning, buy the paper, head into a cafe, have a cappuccino, sit down, tá mé hon an popper nuacht an a cheannach madsin agus dullas jack chuig cafe, cappuccino a bheith am, and hopefully chat away to a few different people, hours like cúpla duine difriúil. That's one of the things as well, definitely one of the things on my criteria, I guess, for planning my big trip away this year. Ceann in a rudí my criteria don bhlíonn sa agus ag planál nó ag olbhú preparing my hearse more imlína was definitely going to a place where they have English as their first language. Ag dul got in a bhfuil an béarla acu mar an chéad teanga. Now, I don't mean that in the sense of, I don't like talking to people who aren't native speakers, or I don't like, for example, Marampla, going to a place where I have to speak a bit of the local language. I love that stuff. It's even really shot. I mean, I literally spend a lot of the year in Spain, and I love going to Italy, practicing my Italian. It's even dulgatí in Idal, agus mo chuid Idálisha a chlachtu. But I find that when you're talking to people who don't have English as the first language, there's always kind of a limit of really how well you can get along with them and how much crack you can have with them, basically. Give it crack a féidirleat a bheith acu lo. While if you go to somewhere, whether it be the UK or somewhere else in Ireland or Canada or the US, which again I've not been to, but obviously it's the same thing because they have the same language, dan sang céan acu in most of those parts. So chuid war, it's in the háiteanna sin, although places like Montreal, of course, not so much because they're French there. Áiteanna cosúil le Montreal, níl say cosúil sin, mar tá an ranky seacu and shin. But I feel like certainly I'm a lot more confident in those type of places. Tá mise a bhád níos muinení and a lot more social, a bhád níos sosialta. And I have no problem going into shop or bar and as I'm ordering, having a bit of conversation with the person working there, beagnín córa a bheith am leis an duine gobar an sin and saying, oh, I'm here for a few days. Do you have an idea, like good things to get up to, good places to go, any recommendations in multi, and just starting to chat with people like Lauert Bugani Ladini, which is obviously important when you're travelling solo. Tá sé arnoi soch tábhaach nar atá tú ag taistil ide éonar. So that was a big thing as well this year. I said, I've not really done much travel and I was in places that speak English as the first language. Níl mór an taistil géint agam in áitna in bhfuil an béarla acu mar an chéad cheanga. And I've spent so much time here in Spain where I am this week on sus Spain an áit in bhfuil me an teachtain seo. Spent so much time constantly operating in my second language or my third language even ag labhairt I ma chara no ma chríú teanga, and no matter how good you get, and I'd like to consider myself fairly proficient and comfortable in Spanish, tá mé sa compradach agus flirseach sa Spanish, but it doesn't matter how good you get, is cuma céchomh ma is bhfuil tú an teanga a labhairt. There'll always be that slight disconnector, for me anyway, slight lack of confidence, beidir aspa money na bioga, in terms of how likely I am or how eager I am, let's say, and fun atá orm to start a conversation with somebody else. And that's how you get the most out of traveling, especially when you're by yourself. Go háirithe nuair atá tú ide éonar. I like traveling as well on these trips in kind of a more old school way. Taistil le malach beaganaí níos seanaimsithe while I'm there, agus mis an sin, so without doing too much research before and kind of getting there and just walking around asking people different stuff and saying, okay, recommending me I'll go there, tá mai an dul sin, mar bhfuil sé an áit sin dumsa, and then once I get there I'll figure it out and kind of go with the flow and without planning too much gan a bheith ag déanamh nummarcha planála cumh. And that's really the way I like doing it, sin an bailach a hat nílam, in terms of going travelling modula a bheith taistil and seeing a bit of the world or seeing a new city ag dul chuig áit éigean nua dain agus ag féchans ar chathair nua beidir nó ar bhaile nua, a new town, a new city, whatever it might be, pay rud no pay áits atá ann. And that is the plan for Toronto and for Newfoundland as well. Sin an plan atá am le haid Toronto agus Talamh. So in Newfoundland from the 13th up until the 18th of August, ag dul go Talamh ón 3 go dtí an 8 mí lúnasa, and then from the 18th to I think it is the 21st or maybe the 22nd on 8 go dtí an chéad lás fiche nó an dara lá is fiche of August, again to bhí lúnasa in Toronto. So it's going to be fun. Hopefully it goes off with any issues and no flight problems, touch wood. Gone in 5 unless na hetzel seen away rud mar sin or any geopolitical disasters or anything like that. Ein tobishti modulus an bulletíocht no an tiroliocht no, and I'm sure doin rud mar sin. Hopefully it'll all be okay in terms of that. Lacuna say by gachard carcalor o have shinja. And while I'm out in Newfoundland, agus mis I'm waiting in Newfoundland, maybe even with the Toronto trip as well, beidir leis an turas le Toronto cumh, I'm looking forward to doing a few interviews. I already have 1 or 2 organised, especially obviously with Newfoundland and the Irish connection, agus an Kangol Éireannach, and even just doing them in English and put them out either on the Learn Irish Online membership or maybe part of it out here on the Gaeilge Weekly feed, agus piece of beagta beidir I'm waiting so air on feed Gaeilge Weekly, and discovering a bit about the Irish who were there, and whether it be 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th generation, whether it be Irish people who were living there, and especially in Toronto, I guess a lot of people moved there, being Londini ag dul Hall and Shin Toronto, O'Heron, and hopefully doing a small bit of work and a few interviews and a few podcasts while I'm out there as well. Cúpla putchréile agus misha I'm waiting sin. Come on. So, very much looking forward to that. Ag tanú go mór leis sin. Gonna bring an end to the podcast this week. Tá mé an chric chur leis an budcréile an teachtain seo. As always, míle buíochas mars ganach for listening, for tuning in, for supporting, as a bheith géisteacht, as a bheith taú leis an show, agus as a bheith túnal isteach gach seachtain. I'm very, very grateful to my fear week, and really enjoyed doing this podcast and everything else that we make over on Learn Irish Online. Agus gachar deile a dhéanamid hall Learn Learn Irish Online. Speaking of LIO, don't forget to sign up for your membership today. Sign up for the free trial while it's there. Sheeny Seuss, done trial Sir Nashka, agus é on Shin, and I guarantee you it's going to be the most important step you ever take by Shamar on Chaim is Talvakti a Glachan to while you are learning the language and trying to find real confidence in speaking and understanding Irish agus thosa ag déanú iireacht chun fíor bhuinín a bheith ad ag labhairt agus ag tuiscint na Gaeilge. Okay, that's it for this week. Sinead done Sochtan show. Looking forward to speaking to you guys again next week. Ag tunn go mór le labhairt live on Sochtan show hugging. Goodbye and God bless. Slán agus Bannacht.